Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a topic today that I think you'll find pretty fascinating. Forgotten inventions.
Inventions that were ahead of their time. Some revolutionary, some pretty bizarre.
Yeah, but all super innovative. We'll be taking a lot of our inspiration from this article, Forgotten Inventions That Were Way Ahead of Their Time, from History Enhanced.
They've got some really cool examples in there.
Yeah, stuff like flying cars in the 1950s.
Ancient Greek computers.
A hat with a built-in radio.
Who would have thought?
I know, right? So let's start with those inventions that almost felt like they were predicting the future.
Okay, like what?
Well, how about the Aero car?
The aero car, a classic example. The dream of the 1950s when people really thought flying cars were just around the corner. And they actually built working prototypes.
That's so cool. Imagine
Yeah.
driving to work, then unfolding your car's wings and flying across the country.
Right. Talk about beating rush hour traffic. But there were some practical challenges, to say the least.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, where would you even land?
Exactly. Safe takeoff and landing spots were a major issue, not to mention all the regulations that come with flying. So the air car technically worked, but it never really got off the ground. Pun intended.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how that idea of personal air travel persists even today, like with all those drone delivery services popping up.
It's true. We're still kind of chasing that Jetsons dream.
Totally. Okay, so speaking of things that seem futuristic, let's jump back in time, way back to ancient Greece.
Ancient Greece.
Yeah. Ever heard of the Antikythera mechanism?
Oh, yeah, that's wild. This thing was like a computer from centuries before computers were supposed to exist.
No way, really. Tell me more.
So picture this. A shipwreck off the coast of Antikythera. Divers find this complex system of gears and dials made of bronze.
Okay, so what was it? Some kind of ancient compass or something?
Way more than that. It was an analog computer that could predict astronomical events, eclipses, moon phases, the whole shebang.
Wow. That's incredible. How did they even figure that out back then?
I know, right? Researchers were blown away. It even tracked the cycles of the Olympic Games.
It really makes you wonder what other secrets might be hidden out there, just waiting to be discovered.
It blows my mind to think about it.
Me too. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Nikola Tesla.
The OG electricity wizard.
Exactly. He's famous for his work with electricity, but did you know he actually envisioned a world powered by wireless electricity?
Oh, yeah. Tesla was way ahead of his time with that. He thought we could get rid of all the wires and transmit electricity through the air using electromagnetic waves.
No more tangled charging cables.
Right. That was the dream. He even started building this giant tower, Wardenclyffe Tower, to try and make it happen.
What happened? Why isn't our world wirelessly powered?
Funding ran out. The tech wasn't quite there yet. Tesla was ahead of his time, sadly.
Right.
But it's fascinating to think that his idea, transmitting information wirelessly, kind of paved the way for stuff we use every day. Radio, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. It's all based on that same principle. So, in a way, Tesla's wireless dream kind of came true, just not exactly how he pictured it.
It's amazing how even those failed inventions can spark future innovation.
Okay.
Ready for another everyday item with a surprisingly long history?
Hit me.
Contact lenses.
You're kidding now.
Nope. The idea of changing the shape of your cornea to improve vision, that goes all the way back to Leonardo da Vinci in the 1500s.
No way. Leonardo da Vinci, the guy who painted the Mona Lisa.
The one and only. Of course, his ideas were pretty different from what we have today.
Thank goodness. Because later on in the 1600s, this guy, René Descartes, he had this idea of putting tubes of water in your eyes to improve vision.
Tubes of water. Ouch. That sounds uncomfortable.
I say, thank goodness technology marched on. But it's kind of cool to think about how those early kind of crazy ideas eventually led to something we consider essential today.
It is. Okay, one last invention in this category, and it's a bit of a head-scratcher.
All right, lay it on me.
The Microsoft SBOT watch.
What? That clunky thing from like 2004?
Yep. Bill Gates and Microsoft tried to launch a smartwatch way back then.
Before their time, huh?
It seems so. The SBOT watch could give you news, weather, even stock updates, all delivered via FM radio signals.
It sounds so quaint now.
I know, right? But it was a pretty bold vision for wearable technology, so what went wrong?
Well, it was pricey, it was glitchy, the battery died fast. Plus, you needed a monthly subscription on top of the cost of the watch. The world just wasn't ready for smartwatches back then, I guess.
It took something like the Apple Watch, with its sleek design and all that, to really make smartwatches mainstream.
Yeah, sometimes an invention just needs the right moment to shine.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so we've seen some inventions that kind of foreshadowed the future, but our journey through forgotten inventions wouldn't be complete without looking at some that are just, well, weird.
All right, let's get weird. What have you got?
Let's start with something that might assault your senses a bit. Smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision, like smelly TV.
You got it. Back in the 1960s, some folks thought it would be awesome to add synchronized scents to television.
Wow. So you're watching a cooking show and suddenly your living room smells like fresh baked bread.
Exactly. Or, maybe something less pleasant.
Like a garbage dump on a nature documentary.
You get the idea. It's amazing how some ideas sound great on paper, but then reality sets in.
Yeah, talk about a logistical nightmare. Imagine trying to make that work in every home.
And the potential for truly awful smells. No thanks. Okay, ready for another wild one?
Hit me.
Picture this. 1910, Halley's Comet is making its return. People are excited, but then they start to panic.
Why? Was it going to crash into Earth?
Not exactly, but an astronomer announced that Earth would pass through the comet's tail.
And people freaked out.
Big time. They were terrified of being exposed to toxic space chemicals.
Oh, wow. So what happened?
Well, as with any good panic, people started selling solutions.
Like what? Tinfoil hats?
Close. Anti-comet pills. Basically placebos. And even tinfoil-covered umbrellas to shield people from the supposed harmful rays.
Wow. That's amazing. The things people will believe, even with science staring them in the face.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that even in the face of scientific advancements, sometimes fear and misinformation can win out.
Sadly, that's true.
Speaking of things that never really caught on, have you ever heard of the runcible spoon?
The what now?
It's like the ancestor of the spork. Imagine a fork, a spoon, and a knife, all combined into one utensil.
What? Who thought that was a good idea?
Some of the 16th century, apparently. It never really caught on, though.
I can imagine why. It sounds pretty clunky to use.
Yeah, maybe a bit too multi-purpose for its own good. The humble spork turned out to be a lot more practical.
Agreed. Less pointy, too.
Okay, ready for a visual. Imagine driving inside a giant tire.
Wait, what?
That's the Dynasphere, a mug-and-a-wheel vehicle from the 1930s. The driver sat inside this enormous wheel and steered it like a car.
Whoa. That's ambitious. But also kind of terrifying, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine it being very stable.
Or very practical.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool to think about the sheer creativity behind some of these inventions.
Absolutely. It's inspiring in a way.
Okay, one more before we wrap up this section. This one's about time.
Time travel.
Not quite. Water clocks. Have you ever heard of them?
Like filling a bucket with water and seeing how long it takes?
That's the basic idea. Ancient Greeks called them clepsydras. They used the flow of water to measure time.
Clever. But not very portable, I'm guessing.
Not at all. They were bulky and stationary, and not super accurate either, since temperature and evaporation could mess things up. But hey, it was a pretty significant invention for its time.
Yeah, gotta give him credit for ingenuity.
Okay, ready for something truly mysterious?
Always.
Let's talk about Greek fire.
Greek fire. Like some kind of ancient flamethrower.
Not a flamethrower, but an incendiary weapon used by the Byzantine Empire from the 7th to 12th centuries. This stuff was legendary.
What was so special about it?
It could burn on water. And get this, the exact formula is still a mystery. The Byzantines kept it a closely guarded secret, and it was eventually lost to history.
Wow. A weapon so powerful, they took the secret to their graves. That's pretty intense.
Right. It really makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden away in the annals of history, just waiting to be rediscovered.
And what incredible inventions might have been lost to time.
It's a fascinating thought. But for now, let's move on to our final group of inventions, those that just make you go, huh. Ready for some head scratchers?
Absolutely. Let's do it. All right, so first up on our list of head scratchers, the Baghdad battery.
The Baghdad battery. Okay, I'm intrigued. What is that?
So imagine archaeologists are digging in Iraq, right? And they find these clay jars. They're old, like really old, dating back to somewhere between 250 BCE and 224 CE.
Okay, so what's so special about some old clay jars?
Well, inside these jars are copper cylinders and iron rods. And get this, when you fill them with an acidic liquid, they produce electricity.
Hold on. Are you saying they had batteries in ancient Mesopotamia? Way before, like, the 1800s.
That's what some people think. It was actually German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig who first called them Baghdad batteries back in the 1930s.
Baghdad batteries. That has a nice ring to it. But seriously, batteries in ancient times, what were they using them for?
No one thinks they were powering ancient laptops or anything. The main theory is that they were used for electroplating, basically decorating objects with a thin layer of metal using electricity.
Ah, so they were blinging out their stuff way back then.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It really makes you think, what other advanced tech might be out there that we just haven't found yet?
It's a tantalizing thought, isn't it?
Totally. Okay, moving from ancient Mesopotamia to, well, a much more recent past. Let's talk about Thomas Edison. We know him for the light bulb, the phonograph, but did you know he also invented something called the electric pen?
Yeah, that one's not as famous, but it's pretty interesting.
So what was it? Some kind of high-tech quill.
Think more like an early version of a mimeograph machine. It had this little electric motor that powered a reciprocating tip. As you wrote, it would punch tiny holes in the paper.
Okay, and then
You could use those perforated sheets to make copies.
interesting, but not exactly groundbreaking, right?
Well, here's where it gets wild. The technology behind the electric pen, it ended up being adapted for, wait for it, tattoo guns.
What? Seriously, that's crazy. So, tattoo artists today owe a debt of gratitude to Thomas Edison.
In a way, yeah. It just shows you how innovation can have these unexpected ripple effects.
Totally. It's like one invention leads to another, sometimes in ways you'd never imagine.
Exactly. Speaking of unexpected connections, let's jump back in time again, all the way to the 1st century AD.
Where are we headed now?
We're going to meet Heron of Alexandria, the brilliant mind behind the first steam turbine, the eolipile.
A steam turbine?
Yeah.
In the 1st century, what did it look like?
Picture a hollow sphere with nozzles sticking out, mounted on an axis. When you fill it with water and heat it up, steam shoots out of the nozzles, making the sphere spin.
So like a spinning tea kettle.
Kind of. It was more of a demonstration of the principles of steam power, centuries before the steam engine really took off during the Industrial Revolution.
So it wasn't really used for anything practical.
Not really, but it showed that steam could be harnessed to create motion. It's like a glimpse into the future of technology hidden away in ancient times.
That's awesome. Okay, let's jump to ancient China now, shall we?
Sounds good to me.
I want to talk about something called the seismoscope.
Ah, yes. Zhang Heng's seismoscope, an ancient earthquake detector.
Whoa, really? They had earthquake detectors way back then.
Yep, back in the 2nd century. This thing was shaped like a jar with dragon heads around it. When an earthquake hit, a ball would drop from one of the dragon's mouths, showing the direction the seismic wave was coming from.
No way. That's so clever.
Yeah.
And it actually worked.
There's a story about it detecting an earthquake hundreds of miles away before anyone in the capital city even felt it. Later, reports came in confirming an earthquake had hit in the exact spot the seismoscope indicated.
Makes you wonder what other incredible inventions from ancient times might be out there just waiting to be rediscovered.
You never know what secrets the past holds.
Okay, so we've got ancient earthquake detectors. Now, how about some ancient electronic music?
Ancient electronic music. I'm all ears.
Have you ever heard of the telharmonium?
The telharmonium. That rings a bell.
It was invented in the late 1800s by Thaddeus Cahill. It was this massive, complex instrument that used spinning rotors and tone wheels to generate electrical signals.
Okay, I'm picturing something like a steampunk synthesizer. What did it sound like?
I imagine it was pretty unique. But here's the really wild part. The music was transmitted over telephone lines.
Wow. So people could listen to electronic music through their telephones back in the 1800s.
It's like a 19th century version of Spotify.
That's incredible. Thaddeus Cahill, a true visionary.
Sadly, the telharmonium was a commercial flop. Too expensive and complex for most people to afford or understand, but it paved the way for the development of electronic music as we know it today.
A true pioneer. It's amazing how these forgotten inventions often contain the seeds of future innovation.
Speaking of things we take for granted today, let's talk about vending machines.
Vending machines? You mean like those dispensers of sugary treats and questionable coffee?
Those are the ones we know today, but the first vending machine actually dispensed something a lot more.
Holy, holy, as in blessed by a priest.
You got it. We have to travel back to the 1st century AD again. Hero of Alexandria, same guy who invented the aeolipile, also created a coin-operated machine that dispensed holy water.
A holy water vending machine. That's amazing. I guess people have always loved convenience, even when it comes to spiritual matters.
It makes you wonder what other unexpected origins might everyday objects have. Maybe we'll stumble upon some more as we continue exploring these forgotten inventions.
I'm ready for more. What else have you got?
Okay, so we've seen inventions that were ahead of their time, some that were just plain weird. Now, for our last batch of forgotten inventions, I thought we could look at some that are just interesting. Kind of a mixed bag, you know?
Sounds good to me. Let's hear it.
How about this? The radio hat. Imagine walking around with a hat that's also a radio.
The radio hat. Oh, yeah, that was a real thing. The Man from Mars radio hat, I think it was called. Vacuum tubes, antenna, the whole 9 yards, all built right into a hat.
So you're just walking down the street, blasting your music for everyone to hear.
Pretty much. There weren't any headphones or anything. I can only imagine what people would think if they saw someone wearing that today.
I know, right?
Hmm.
But there's something kind of charming about it, don't you think? It's definitely unique.
It definitely is. And hey, it was popular for a while back in the day. Goes to show, what we think is weird now might have been all the rage back then.
That's true. Okay, here's another one. The amphicar.
The amphicar, as in a car that can also be a boat.
Exactly. It was made in Germany in the 60s, had wheels for the road and propellers for the water.
So, the ultimate weekend getaway vehicle. Drive to the lake, then just keep going.
That was the idea. I don't think it was very fast on either land or water, though.
Yeah, and it probably wasn't cheap either. But still, a car that turns into a boat. That's pretty cool.
Super cool. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into forgotten inventions.
It's been quite a journey. We've seen some truly amazing, and let's be honest, some truly bizarre inventions.
It's amazing to think about all the creativity and ingenuity that went into these ideas. Even the ones that didn't succeed, they pushed the boundaries of what people thought was possible.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe some of those failures planted the seeds for technologies we use every day. It makes you wonder, what inventions from today will people be talking about 100 years from now?
That's a great question to ponder. What seemingly ordinary object from our lives will become a museum piece, a relic of a bygone era? Maybe the smartphones we're all glued to, or those self-driving cars that are starting to pop up?
It's fascinating to think about. Who knows what the future holds? But one thing's for sure, human ingenuity never ceases to amaze.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap things up. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of forgotten inventions. Until next time.